Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Two Dads Chillin' podcast, the podcast for dads by dads. We are your hosts, Brennan and Matt. Let's get into it. As I said, this is the Two Dads Chillin' podcast, episode 1. Today, we're just gonna introduce ourselves, go over a few things, and go from there.
Welcome.
So this will be a weekly podcast. We're just strive to, give dads like ourselves a better outlook on life and give them some tips and advice throughout life. And I always think that if you can change one dad's life, you definitely made a difference.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Man.
So what's up?
You're gonna start the podcast off the straight cough.
I don't know what it is with this cough, but I feel like I've had it forever. So, anyways, what's up? How's it going?
Spending time with family. Got a daughter, just about ready to turn 3, and
That's next week, isn't it?
that's next Friday, and then
You're getting old.
well, that's not even the start of it.
I know. Trust us.
Got a son that's getting ready to turn 18 in a
Woo-wee.
couple months, so definitely a wide spread there.
It's definitely time to get out the house and give Dad back his house, ain't it? Maybe buy a bigger house.
Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
no.
Not to that point yet.
I don't blame you. Anyways, we're Brennan. I'm Brennan. That's Matt. Just two average dads that have
Middle class families here.
have a lot in common, a lot of experience. But we also have a lot of similarities, I would say. I'll get into.
What's your family makeup?
So I'm me, my wife Madison, my daughter Olivia, who is with my wife Madison, or from my wife Madison, I should say, and then my son Bentley, who is from my ex-wife.
How's Madison with Bentley?
We have our days, or they have their days, I should say. I feel like that's common in blended families. Every day's something different. We work through the issues and take our good days with our good days, our bad days with our bad days.
Well, I definitely think that's something not necessarily even blended families deal with, but just your average average family deals with that. So it's not necessarily I don't believe it to be just a blended, non-blended family or traditional family. I think they're gonna have good days regardless of that. So
a little bit more about me. I just turned 30 last year. Worked for a beverage company, premium beverage company, I guess you could say. Love my job, love what I do. I graduated with a bachelor's in business from Northern Kentucky University, diehard Michigan and Cowboys fan. So all Ohio State fans, you are not allowed to listen to this podcast.
not exactly a geographical teams there that you root for.
I also root for the Lakers and and the Tigers.
Yeah, definitely. You got a little bit everywhere covered there.
Yeah.
Your fandom.
Hey, at least I'm loyal to my teams. But no, I was in the United States Marine Corps from 2014, 2018. Was a radio operator stationed in Camp Pendleton, in a unit that is now disformed, I guess you wanna say.
That just recently happened, right?
Yeah. I want to say it happened a month or two ago, actually.
Do you know why they did that? Was it budgetary cuts or? Just
So normally
redundancy?
when they do that, it's just like any company. I feel like they get too big and they're not able to support everything around, I guess. And what I mean by that, like people might think like, oh, you get too big, why can't you support? Well, you need X amount of people, to support. So if we're in a group of, let's just say 10,000 people, and we only got 5,000 in this one, 5,000 in that one, 5,000 in that one, and so on and so on, can't really support anything with half of what you need, I guess I want to say. Um, but yeah, I've been in sales my whole life. Absolutely love it.
That's why you like to talk so much.
I do love to talk. Everyone tells me that I am definitely a talker. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think it's you're relatively a no filter kind of guy. Like you're speak first, think later,
Ask questions last.
kind of person. So.
I always tell you and everybody else, our little friend group, you ask for forgiveness later from your wives. That's tip number one from the dads. You ask for forgiveness later. But no, I'll get into a little bit more of my story here in a little bit. What about you? What is your makeup?
Like I said earlier, I got a daughter, got a son, and then my wife. My son is adopted through the foster care system, the state foster care system. He's been in my life since he was 5. And then my daughter is with me and my wife as our biological child, but been very rewarding raising Jordan, the son, not only with myself but my wife. He looks at us as mom and dad, and really feel like we've had a huge impact on his life, and continue to do that every day.
Who are your teams? What do you like to do for fun? What do you like to drink? What do you like to smoke, if anything?
I'm a Cincinnati area native, so I'm a Reds fan.
So what you're trying to say is you haven't seen many championships. Got it. Noted.
But I'm a Bengals fan. I'm a Reds fan. Both of my parents are from the Lexington, Kentucky area, so Kentucky basketball I grew up on. I've got 2 half siblings that went to the University of Louisville, so I do pull for them as well.
That would be like me pulling for that team in Columbus.
Neither one of them are my alma maters. So, when they do play each other, what I look for the most out of those is a good game.
Right.
I'll take a good game over a blowout any day, regardless if my team wins or loses. I obviously I want my team to win, but a good game trumps a blowout in my mind.
What do you like to drink? I see back here we got a little collection. I know upstairs.
Yeah, I don't think they can see that on the camera, but I'm a bourbon drinker. I do enjoy, dabbling in that. Being living in Kentucky, I feel like it's kind of something that you have to do as a bourbon person. So,
all right, and we're back. Kids. I guess this is basically how we got here.
Yeah, see, both our daughters are over here playing, and one starts crying, so got to pause it and see what's going on.
Anyways, back to what we were talking about. You and liking the finer liqueurs.
I'm a big bourbon drinker. Bourbon collecting gets a bad name just because people, buy them, hoard them, never open them, never taste them, and just drives the prices up for the people who actually buy them to open them and enjoy them with friends.
I guess that's for anything though, wouldn't you say? Like even I see the shoe collection behind us. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty much the same way because I remember. What was it, 6 years ago when Yeezys were the hot topic thing?
Yeah, I mean, I pride myself on, if I buy something, it's going to be enjoyed. It's going to be used for, in a sense, the purpose that it was intended for.
The only thing that you don't play with are these things behind me.
Yeah, but again, the Funko Pops, none of them have got any value to them. They're, just things that I enjoy. Figurines. But, for bourbon, I like to say I have a selection. I don't have a collection.
Right. Because you've always even offered me to drink whatever I wanted. Your house is basically an open bar.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for really anybody that's coming in here. Now, I may ask you a couple questions as to, what have you had, what haven't you had, what you like, what you don't like, to guide you into something that I think you might enjoy over something that like just to try something. I try to match what you've had and liked previously to something you made like that you haven't had.
And to my other question too, what do you like to smoke? And I only ask that because I know we both enjoy a nice cigar when we're doing our favorite activity.
Yeah, cigar smoker. I enjoy a Liga Privada. It's probably one of my favorite sticks. Usually have one or two when playing 18 holes of golf, and even sometimes just sitting on the back deck, watching the sunset. Having a nice stick out there for hour and a half. So really just really just depends.
Right. And speaking about 18, I think that's probably our favorite hobby that we have. We've definitely connected over that, and I feel like that's where our friendship kind of formed.
Yeah, I would say, I guess we first met when, we used to be coworkers. I've since moved on out of sales for the beverage company, but I think golf is something that I'm passionate about. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy playing it. It frustrates me. Don't get me wrong. That I can hit the one good shot every 9 holes, and it's like you're kind of just chasing that perfection that you're never going to get.
No, absolutely.
But where Brendan is in his golf game, I was there at one point. I see the passion and drive to want to get better. So I think it's just a matter of me kind of maybe passing on some of my knowledge as far as what's helped me, how to manage my game.
Definitely think that you make me better and I make you worse. I'm just a clown out there whenever we play.
No, I mean, it's still early on in the season. I have not played golf as nearly as much in the past. I would say 3 years as I had probably, 3 years prior to that.
No, totally agree. Because I was playing 3-4 times a week during COVID.
Yeah, so I think that's just life happens. I got a newborn child that's now 3, so definitely that time commitment is much greater in the infant phase of childhood development than someone who's maybe a little older.
Yeah, so guess I always start off with the story whenever we meet somebody. We'll just get into how you and I I said that our friendship grew at golf, but really our friendship's a lot deeper than that, and the fact that I probably know more about you and knew more about you than the average Joe. So Matt and I, like he said, we met at a beverage company. He wasn't the friendliest looking person to want to talk to, and one day I kept bugging him like, hey, do you want to play golf? You want to play golf? You want to play golf? And I finally put 2 and 2 together that he was my freshman year teacher's, at the time I thought son, and he told me not to stepmom. But anyways, I'm not going to fully go into, but Matt's daughter was in the ICU or in the NICU, whatever you want to call it, when she was first born.
Cardiac intensive care unit.
Yeah.
So CICU.
So I saw Matt crying and everything when he brought his daughter home and everything, and I was like, oh my God, this is so heartwarming. I was crying too, and lo and behold, fate brought us together, and can honestly say I'm glad that it did, because I look up to you. I always tell you, not just as a friend, but as a brother and more. You've definitely given me advice that we'll get into more throughout the episodes, just on how to deal with certain things. And
yeah, both of our sons are very similar, and
right,
some of what you're going through right now with Bentley, I went through with Jordan as well. So
and yeah, I mean, you definitely have. Not trying to get all soppy and everything. A heart of gold and would do anything for anybody, but no, I definitely value our friendship, and yeah, it's fun, but yeah, so we can get into more of our family dynamics. I know this episode's probably going to be a little bit boring. It'll just be about us and getting to know really who we are, not as just people, but kind of our backstory, and maybe somebody else will have the same story as us or be going through the same thing as us. And like I said, it's probably not the most entertaining episode or listen, probably be a little boring, but it's got to happen. Every podcast starts somewhere.
That's right. I mean, it's all about growing and developing, and a lot like raising a child. You got a newborn right now.
I think it's funny because I pushed you to do this, and it started off really just as a joke, and
Here we are.
I feel like a lot of our, well, not yours, but more or less my ideas start off as jokes.
Well, it's if you want to do something, my kind of how I've looked at my life is what are your goals, and then what are the milestones, what are the goals, what do you need to do to achieve that and get where you want to get. So now when you said you wanted to do this, and it was more than just a one-time thing, it's like, okay, what's step one, But
what I think is the funniest part out of all this is that you are not the social butterfly that I am.
No, I'm not. I mean, it's, my friendships are
very few. Well, I shouldn't say it like that, but like,
no, and my wife and I have this conversation. Emily and I have had this conversation, about friendships, and, what she views as a friend, and what I view as an acquaintance.
Right.
So,
and you and I have talked, like,
her friendships are vast, but, they're not very deep. Yes, she does have friends that, she can go to and talk about anything. So they're, the depth of their conversations and comfort level is greater. But where mine is like, what I consider friends is, a very small circle, but of all those people, it's very deep, with the friends that I have. Outside of that circle, your acquaintances. I always give her a hard time just because she's like, oh, this friend of mine, and I'm like, I've never met that person, so they're clearly not a friend.
And you're like, we've been together 15 years, like that's weird that you're just talking about that, it is.
So I just think, what she uses as, a friend, the label of friend is not what my label would be. Right.
And it's funny too, because you're so quiet, and like, you would never know what's going on in Matt's life by looking at his social media.
Yeah, I'm not a social media poster.
Trust me, I know. It's hard for you barely even like the stuff that I posted, and when it's you and I together,
I get the same thing from my wife. So it's like, she's like, oh, did you like my post? I'm like, I saw it.
Yeah. You're like, I thought about liking it, but it's funny because it's like, you and my wife are so similar, and me and Emily are so similar. And I think that could be too why we connect so well, is because like, we look for the opposites in each other, because I don't want to, sound weird or anything, but it's like what we're attracted to, and more or less. are not attracted to, but that's like kind of like what we know as far as like our I don't want to say foundation, but
Well, I my thing on the social media is that, I don't look for acceptance from posts as far as like how many likes it gets or comments or shares. Like, I know I'm not going to be the next viral video or,
I mean, you could be.
but I mean, that's just, that's not how I quantify or qualify my feelings or life.
Right. That's something that I've definitely had to learn because I always get super pissed at Maddie. I'm like, what the hell? I made this long, soppy post and you didn't give it a heart or nothing. You just gave it a thumbs up. Like, what the hell? What am I doing wrong? Or like when we go on vacation, I make this, I had this greatest time ever with my wife, da 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 da. And she posts nothing. Like, did you even enjoy your time? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm guilty of the not liking things or I shouldn't say not liking, but not liking on social media. Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
But it's funny too because some of my favorite activities you absolutely can't stand.
Yeah.
And your favorite activities, you see how fat I am? There's no chance in the world you'd catch me doing.
You're not going to go hiking?
Not a chance. I might hike up your stairs to the fridge. That's about it. But you know what I mean? Like, I just think, like, I like to be around people. You like to be, not here, but, like, you like to be home and with the people that love and care about you, whereas I like to be at the concerts, the loud music. And I always try to get you, come on, I can get tickets to this, tickets to that, tickets to this. And you're like, no. Yeah. But,
my wife loves concerts and, they've just never been my thing. I never really went to them as a kid growing up. So, sporting events were always like, what we went to, Reds games. So that's what I enjoy is I'll go to sporting events as much as I can. So that's really what I enjoy.
Speaking of the sporting events, you like to dibble and dabble in the old Bet 365, Caesars Sportsbook, DraftKings.
Yeah, it's ever since it's legal in Kentucky now.
Isn't it crazy, not to cut you off, but isn't it crazy to think like 15, 20 years ago, like the only way you could bet on a game was if you were in Vegas?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I could make a friendly wager. I mean, yeah. But like to actually get like a return, that's.
Oh yeah, I mean that's certainly something that as a country, as a society, we have evolved. And the states have realized that there's a want from the constituents, and that
I don't think we'll ever find out just how much money that states are actually making off of this.
Kind of like the lottery system, I mean, can we really see how much that is? It's, I don't know. I mean, politics,
which will not be discussed on this podcast.
So, it's the politics of it. It's politicians.
Speaking of that, and I know I said politics won't be speaking on this, I think you and I tell everybody, like, we are so opposites. I mean, we have different beliefs, and, I'm not going into what you believe in, what I believe in, because it's not important. I mean, it might get touched on later, but whatever. But I think that's what's cool about us too, is we can talk like normal humans, and we don't tell each other that, you're an idiot for believing in that.
I mean, we're gonna have an adult conversation, respect each other's opinions, speak our opinion to the other, and definitely not try to persuade them, but just kind of give a different point of view.
Right. I think especially with the blow up of since 2018 when I said I wasn't going to talk politics, but when Trump took office, from 2018 to 2022, like that time in the social media just completely blew up, and not only blew up in a good way because I think social media is good. I keep track of what Tommy Sue and Joanne are doing in West Virginia while I'm here, but I also think it's a bad thing, and because not all families agree. I know my family has a different background, and your family definitely has a different background than what you believe in. But it's like we always tell people that ask, or not ask, but just it's like, when do you grow up?
Well, I think that some of the issue is that there are anybody with a keyboard and mouse or even a smartphone can type whatever they want, and they're not held to they're not held to the journalistic standards of major news outlets. Where somebody's putting their name to it, an organization is backing it, and there's potential fallout from something if it's not fact checked correctly and so forth like that. So
what are your
something that may or may not be true, catches traction, and now everybody believes that it's fact. So it can be a little deceiving, and I definitely think that social media has done good, but I think it's also done some bad in a standpoint of we've kind of drawn a line in the sand, and which side are you on, and kind of force people to pick on which side, and it's like you can't be 1 foot over, 1 foot on each side. It's got to be all the way over,
right,
and even as far away from the line as you can get. Or
no, absolutely. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's, I don't know. I always tell everybody, like, when did we become so divided as a nation that that's what it's came to? Like, if you believe one thing and I believe, but enough about politics. I hate politics. Politics is dumb. If I wanted to talk politics, I would have got a political science degree or whatever. Whatever it is. I don't even know exactly what it is.
Poli-sci, yeah.
Yeah. But let's get into our families, You want me to lead or you lead?
Go for it.
All right. So like I said, I got a son. He's my biological son. His real mom's on the picture, and it's unfortunate that things happen that way.
But he's got his stepmom is filling that void, right?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is going through things. I think it's that pre-puberty, preteen almost type attitude that's going, because they say boys hit puberty at like 11 or 12, right?
I mean, that it can vary, and if there's medication involved, then it could bring that up forward more, or delay it depending on if there's any kind of prescription medication.
Right. So he's definitely at that threshold. Yeah, but he's a cool kid. Loves soccer. Does MMA.
That probably helps with getting some anger out.
I mean, it helps, but now he thinks he's Royce Gracie out there on his little sister. But now I think the one thing that has brought us closer, I was going to get into a little bit at the end, is his love for wrestling, which is now at my age. I know it's fake and everything, but it's like watching an adult soap opera unfold
every Monday night.
Every Monday night, baby. I've even tried to get you into it, and
I never watched it growing up as a kid, so it's just something I've never been interested in, and at my age now, I don't think I want to get into it now. I think there's far better things on TV for me to watch that can entertain me.
Yeah, probably. But so we like to do that. Me and my wife, we like to go on trips. Might have something in the works here coming up.
So did Maddie and Bentley? Did they bond right away, or was it something that took some time?
I don't think that they have fully reached that 100% potential that I want them to be at. Honestly, it's definitely taking time, and it's a lot of the fact of the matter that it's like he sees Maddie with my daughter, and he's like, why does she have her mom but I don't have my mom, and Maddie does her absolute best. I'll never say anything negative about her trying, to be an actual mom and and when it comes to discipline, punish, love towards him. But I definitely think he knows that there's something different.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is, but there's also that mother-daughter bond that is, just something different, right? I mean, there's a reason moms help daughters get ready for weddings and not the dad. I think that's just a different dynamic than like mother sons.
Yeah, I'm definitely the hard ass of the parenting group, which I'm sure you are too. When it comes to Jordan, I'm definitely the disciplinary, but I feel like as a parent, you're supposed to fear your father. To an extent, I feel like I don't know. There's supposed to not be a buddy relationship. I feel like when it comes down to it, when dad means serious, dad means serious.
Yeah, but you also don't want to have that tension that if the son does mess up, that he can't go to dad and say, "Hey, Dad, I need help."
Right. No, I mean, I definitely think you are hitting the nail right there on the head.
It's got to be a balance of like respect. Understand that if you did mess up or made a mistake, own the mistake, take the punishment, and try not to do it again. But also have that tender loving for the child, that if they are in some sort of trouble, that they can come to you and not feel like they're going to be punished just for coming to you.
No, yeah, I mean, you're right about that. But yeah, no, so that's kind of our makeup. We used to live in California, and then sunny San Diego, good old Camp Pendleton. Then we moved. I got honorably discharged and moved out here with Maddie. She told me she was pregnant when I came home, and here we are, going on 8 years later. Never thought that it would be like this, but I'm not mad that it is, I should say. We're actually in the process of buying our first home.
Congratulations. So you're a couple weeks out from closing?
Something like that. I don't want to think about it. It's stressful. But I mean, it's like...
Bring a pen with lots of ink.
No, I'm trying to get you to move right down the street for me. But no.
Home ownership is very rewarding.
It's definitely, and it's a topic that I definitely want to cover in later episodes. As far as focusing on, that dad that maybe doesn't know what credit is or how crucial it is, because I was definitely that dad that did not really care about credit or. But yeah, anyways, that's enough about me. Let's get into you.
Well, what do you want to know?
You tell me. What do you want? What do you want the listeners to know?
Jordan, get ready to turn 18 here in a few months. Like I said, I've had him since he was 5 as a foster care child, but adopted him. Been very rewarding for not only myself but my wife. Then we had our first biological child, Ella, where at our first anatomy scan, we were given the news that kind of, no parent expects to be given. We learned that she had something wrong with her heart. And, I can remember that day pretty extensively. Remember exactly where I was sitting when I was given that news. We were at just our, local outpatient hospital getting that scan done. We were transferred over to Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Been one of the nation's top children's hospital for many years in a number of different areas. So we got transferred over there. About a week later, we had another anatomy scan there where, the specialists were looking at it. It was about a 45 minutes scan where not a lot of talking was going on. They were just getting the pictures that they needed to get pictures of. And then the nurses would come in and give us the news of and come up with some sort of plan of attack. So we get this, doctor comes in with 3 nurses, a social worker as well. And they tell us that Ella has what's called hypoplastic right heart syndrome with pulmonary atresia. And
can this also, not to interrupt you, but because you said the diagnosis, but with right heart, can it also affect the left heart? Is it or does it only happen in the right?
No, it can happen with the left. The left is actually worse than the right, and it has a much has a higher mortality rate than right heart.
Did you think that, or did they tell you that was a possibility that she wouldn't make it?
I mean, it wasn't something that they told us right away,
right?
But I asked what the percentages were when they were giving us this is the series of open heart surgeries that she's going to need to repair her heart. It kind of in a very dumbed down version. Her right side of her heart is small and it isn't pumping blood at the rate that it needs to. And she was also born without the main artery that takes oxygenated blood, or blood from your heart to your lungs to be oxygenated, which when you're in the womb, you don't need your heart or your lungs to be able to breathe. But once you are out of the womb, you need to start taking those breaths and breathing on your own. So that's where it becomes very important. So
if you guys didn't make that not split second, but that decision when she came out, she probably.
Well, there's, it's one of the tests that they run when children are born,
right?
Making sure they're breathing, and they look at their pulse oxygenation level. But there's a bypass that is in the womb when you're in the womb. There's a a bypass that actually will close automatically within, they say the first 9 to 10 days of life. Just every baby just naturally closes it themselves with their body, because now they're not having to bypass the lungs. They can give them medicine that will actually keep that open for them to be able to use it, which Ella was immediately given that medicine through an IV drip. And, her first open heart surgery was scheduled 11 days after she was born.
So did you even get to see Ella when she was born, or did they like take her immediately?
So we got to see her for about 5 minutes, and then she was taken for, basically more better initial scan to make sure that everything they were seeing in the womb is actually what they saw when she was born. And what
was going through yours and Emily's head at that time?
We were in a good spot. We were at Cincinnati Children's, which is number 1 or number 2 in pediatric cardiac care. Emily delivered at Children's Hospital, which is actually very uncommon. They have a very small maternity ward there at the time that Ella was born. So we were very fortunate that, she was born there, immediate care at the same hospital. And then we actually didn't get to see Ella again until she was in the cardiac intensive care unit, about 3 or 4 hours later, before we could go see her.
And that was only see her, right? You didn't get to hold her or nothing, or did
no?
You?
I mean, we couldn't hold her. So when she was born, they had to ventilate her. Now she had her own room. It wasn't like she was behind a glass or anything like that. Right. So we were able to stay with her, hold her hand, and everything. But yeah, she had to have a vent.
That had been something that you'll never forget for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
like kind of traumatic almost, like seeing your newborn perfect creation right there.
Yeah, but I think that with it be both mine and Emily's first biological child, we had nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So, that is what, it's our normal. We understand that it's not everybody's normal, but
right.
It's our normal. So, it's, we made it through.
Absolutely.
Ella's had 2 scheduled surgeries, 1 unscheduled surgery. The unscheduled one was just some an infection that she got that they had to open her back up and kind of clean out some infection. But she's all good. We got 1 more surgery scheduled. Or 1 more surgery that needs to be scheduled. But that's where, we're probably 1.5 years, 2 years from that. Really just depends on how she grows into her heart. And
are there any possible bumps in the road from now until she's 80, let's say? Like,
I mean, she's definitely, according to doctors, she's more susceptible to potentially needing a heart transplant.
Right.
Later on in life. But that's so far off in the distance that I don't even really think about that. Right. Because, even if it's 30, 40 years from now,
I mean, who knows what even medicine is at that time? I mean,
what was medicine 30, 40 years ago from today?
I mean, probably at that time, they say, I shouldn't give a real statistic, but like a heart transplant, like finding perfect everything there's such a long wait list. I foresee, just seeing like where everything is going, like by the time she would need one, they would already have like be able to 3D print her a new heart. More or less like on the lines of that, and it works just normal. Just like looking at the trajectory of like how everything is going, you know what I mean? Like they would just be able to make her one real quick.
Yeah,
or something like that. You know,
that's right. I don't try not to think about it too much
Right.
because it's like, you know, if it's 30, 40, 50 years in the future, you know, what was medicine 30, 50 years ago,
Oh,
and how much we've
absolutely.
advanced just from then to now, and what's it going to be in the future. So, you know, it's not something that, you know, the indication that we've been given that it's a more now versus later. Um, so, and you know, she's doing great. She's actually exceeding all her milestones. You know, her stats are phenomenal, exceeding what the doctors are wanting. So, you know, we're really in a good spot with her, and you know, she's, you know, we I don't treat her any different. You know, I know she's gonna fall and,
Right.
you know, get scrapes and bruises just like any other kid.
Would you have more?
Eh,
I know, based on our friendship, that
I'm on the fence.
you're a numbers guy, and I know you and I have talked before. You know, like the 1% goes to 2%, and you know, 1% seems very unlikely to everybody, but you know, you were that 1%.
Yeah, and then, you know, I haven't, you know, looked at the statistics myself, but you know, the doctors are, you know, we're having the hypoplastic right heart syndrome and pulmonary atresia is like a 1 in a million, and you know, it's like, oh, like,
So she's basically your miracle baby.
yeah, I mean, so, and you know, we've got a great support staff, family, friends, that really, you know, supported us during everything. So, but you know, it's like I look at that 1 in a million. It's like, do I want to go all in again? And
Well, I mean, to just you did it the first time, you know, like, and you know that it was, but you probably had no idea even what this was.
no, absolutely not. I mean, and we didn't get really, when we were at the first anatomy scan, just the local hospital. You know, we were just given, there's something not right with our heart, is what we were kind of given, and they weren't the specialists, so they couldn't really give us any more details. You know, so we had to sit and chew on that for, you know, 5 to 7 days before we could get to that next appointment, and that's when we got the name, we got the education from the doctors, we got the resources to do our own homework, and that's when, you know, we went to town on what this was.
Right.
No, we're fortunate enough. I mean, getting it at the first anatomy scan, you know, it gave us the time to understand what journey we were going to have in the future.
I think too, you benefited in just this being a time that we're in now, where you can easily, you know, type something real quick and you get 60,000 pages of documents. You're not having to go to the library and research and ask.
Absolutely. And you know, and the doctors, they certainly do caution you. You know, they say, you know, these websites are reputable. You know, they're checked by doctors. They're written by doctors with this specialty. You know, kind of use these and don't necessarily like kind of take this for, you know, as fact. The other stuff, you know, it may be somebody's opinion and not, you know, a medical fact.
Right. But yeah, let's wrap episode 1 up there.
Yeah.
You know, got a lot more to talk about. Just in the coming weeks, months, years, etc. You will be getting probably a daily dose, I would say, this week of episodes. Just because we've done so much, I feel like, this week in general. We went to the memorial, or are going to the memorial, I should say, this week.
Yeah, by the time this is be uploaded, we've already been. But
yeah, we've already have been. And then I'm sure we'll cover going a little depths of more of the just I don't want to say Q&A, but just bouncing topics off of each other and getting into the nitty gritty of what it's like to be a dad, and just covering topics that no textbook can really prepare you for. The stuff that like I said,
that real world experience.
Yeah, talk about credit and everything, because I come from an experience where I'm just now figuring everything out, and you've helped me through that. And I think that I'm not going to say Mr. Finance as far as, creditkarma.com, you know what I mean? But you've definitely helped me and shown me ways, and, you're financially doing well for yourself. So maybe like you can position other dads and put dads in, that mind frame of, you're going to struggle for 5 months or 5 years. But then, once you get done through that struggle of putting money back and doing this and that, just some of the tips and tricks that you did as a young single dad.
Yep.
Before you met Emily and whatnot. So I'd like to end episode 1 here. But before we do it, I want to give a shout out to Alex, who is our editor and videographer, or audio and video guy. He's really, the man behind all this. I appreciate him 100%. You can follow us at all of our socials. We'll list them below. And be on the lookout in a few weeks. I will be on another podcast by this same group or business, whatever you want to call it. It'll be a different name, like same family, I guess. Whatever you want to call it. It will be Heelcast, and it'll be me and Andy. It'll be a wrestling themed podcast. So yeah, you can find us there. You got any final words?
No, other than
look forward to building this.
Hang in there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll talk to you next time.
We are out.